In this video, we're going to create a new folder together in the root directory of our website, or in other words, within the public HTML directory of our website. This means that this particular folder itself, as well as all the files contained inside it, will be fully accessible to any user who enters the website address and then subsequently adds a slash followed by the specific name of that folder. Now, what we want to do is set up a username and password for that specific folder and the files contained inside it, so that if someone visits this particular address, they can only access it by entering a valid username and password. We're going to do this without using any plugins or having direct access to SSH. Let's get straight into the process. First of all, you need to go into your public HTML. It doesn't really matter at all whether you're using cPanel, Plesk, or DirectAdmin. The process is exactly the same. All you simply need to do is go into your public HTML directory and then create a new folder. I'm going to name it, as in the name payment, as payment. All right, let's create this folder together. First, you should carefully check this particular folder by right-clicking on it and then selecting the Change Permission option to make absolutely sure its permissions are precisely set, just like the specific ones I've clearly shown here. Let's see. Because if these permissions are set, you might not be able to access this folder by entering your website address, followed by htaccess. I will go into this specific htaccess folder, and within it there is a sample file. Let's say it's essentially a backup file, basically a complete backup of our entire website that we genuinely want to give to someone else. I will actually upload this particular backup file. Once it turns green here, I go back. I will now reload that specific folder, and I can clearly see that this particular backup, this important backup file, has now been successfully uploaded to the designated htaccess folder. So by simply entering an address called Payman Farahani as Payman, we can easily access this folder and the file located inside it. And by clicking on this backup, we can also conveniently download it. Okay. Now, we want to set a username and password for this address, this folder, and its internal files. That means when you enter this address, it will ask you for a username and password, and only if you have them will you be able to access this file. So what you need to do is create two files. One is an .htaccess file, and the other is a file called .htpass. To create these two essential files, first you will need to make a new folder and then carefully create a file named .htaccess inside this folder using new file .htaccess. Sometimes you might not have access to this htaccess file. That means after you create it, it might become completely hidden from your view. What you need to do is click on the settings menu, then carefully check the show hidden files option. Make sure to save it, and then the .htaccess file will be properly displayed for you. Now, if it still doesn't show up for you, all you simply need to do is right-click, select the edit option. Click on edit, and here we will need to add a few lines of code. I've posted the necessary codes you will need to add on my own website. I'll also put the link down below the video. This comprehensive article has actually been written for you as a detailed guide. This is the file containing the codes that need to be placed inside the htaccess file. Now, the only essential thing we really need to do is to correctly set the precise path to this particular folder. I'll walk you through it step by step. Here it says Home. Check your cPanel for your website's path. For me, it's /home/Payman Farahani. Going back to this htaccess, here it says Home, so I need to change it to Home Payman Farahani. Payman Farahani is correct. Public HTML is also correct. Here's my folder name. That was our folder name. It's Payman. Okay, up to this point, when we set it up, it says, okay. What this htaccess does is it basically says, okay, go from this address to htpass and get access. So now we need to create the htpass file together. I'm going to save this and close it. Inside this folder, I'm going to create another file called htpass. Okay. All right, inside this particular htaccess file, what we really need to do is effectively set the username and password. Wait, I misspoke about the htaccess file itself. So the username and password that the htaccess file can securely read are specifically in the htpass format. We need to put the username and password here in that specific format. Meaning we can't just set, for example, the username as user and the password as payman To create this correctly, we need to use a website. The address for this is also included in the tutorial. I'll provide it for you as well. You come here and click on New Free Pass. For example, I'll name it User. I'll set my password as Password. Payment, what you need to do is set a secure username and password. But since this is just for the tutorial, I'm using a simple username and password right now. Naturally, you should set a secure username and password, especially since you want to give access from your site's root to a folder and allow other people to access it. So you need a secure password. After you've set the username and password, make sure to pay attention here and ensure the MD5 option is enabled. Okay, now it's set to MD5 for me. I'll set the password key. Up here, a line of code has actually been written. You can see here that the password was encoded and turned into a string of characters that can't be recognized. This is the hashed password. Okay, I'll copy this. I'll paste it into the htpasswd file and save it. So now what we've done is we've created our file and set up our folders. We've created the htaccess file, we've added its code. Our htaccess2 file is being executed by our htpasswd. We've also set the username and password in the htpasswd file. Now I'm going to open a new incognito window in that folder named payman. As you can see, it now asks us for a username and password. If I enter the wrong username and password, it tells me again that I need to provide the correct credentials. In other words, it doesn't allow us to access that file. And if I cancel it, it gives a 401 error and still doesn't allow us to access that folder. Even if we want to access this backup.zip file now, it will still ask us for a username and password, and it will only open if we have and enter the username and password we set for it. That's the only way we can actually gain access to it. It's the same for the folder, because right now I haven't set a username for the file, so the folder opens for me without any issue. But if I go directly into the specific folder and don't have the correct username and password, naturally it simply won't open for me. Well, the only crucial thing you really need to keep in mind, I'm just mentioning these important considerations in addition to the main tutorial. Suppose, for example, you have a backup file of your website that you're making available for everyone to download, and you're protecting it with a username and password. It's certainly true that this method is a secure way to protect your valuable files, but it's generally better not to use it in the long term. Let's say you want to send this file to someone for a day or two. That's completely understandable, but in the long run, it's generally best practice not to keep a complete and comprehensive backup of your entire website in the very root directory of your site at all. I just used it here as a simple example file for your understanding. But on the other hand, let's say this backup is, for example, 20 gigabytes, and I want to send it to someone, so I have to use a paid service or a public file sharing service. In that particular case, there's absolutely no security for my personal website or to effectively prevent my files from being accessed by other individuals, and I might even be forced to utilize paid services. Perhaps I'd much prefer to use my own website's dedicated storage space to actually transfer important files to others, and all I truly need is for this to happen through a simple username and password. In all these particular cases, the method I have just explained to you is a truly secure, remarkably simple, and very easy way that genuinely lets you create that specific folder without any additional plugins or extra permissions.